Hey everybody, this is Lauren the Cheerful Baker, and I was live this morning showing you all how to bake cookies, but it didn't save or I didn't do something correctly. So I am showered now. I look better. So if you saw me this morning, I apologize. But I did just want to share some tips with you all about how to bake cookies because I had someone question me about that, not question me, but ask me questions about that the other day. And I thought, things to me, this comes naturally. I've been baking with my mom my entire life. But for new people, sometimes it doesn't come naturally. So if you have a question, please leave it and I will answer it when we are all finished. But one of the first things that I wanted to tell you is I bake every week if I have an order for that week, but I only make cookie dough once per month. And the way that I do that is on Sundays, I will usually make about 8 times the amount of cookie dough, like 8 times one recipe. And then I store it in these great big, huge bags. I will put enough cookie dough in these bags that I'm going to need for um, a week. And then the rest of the cookie dough I put in the freezer. This is my saving grace right here. I'm very messy. And so I only like to make cookie dough once a month. And then I leave it in the freezer. It makes my life so much easier to do it like that. Let me put this up just a little bit. Okay. The other really helpful thing, that I hope these tips are helpful to you all, is I roll my dough on this mat. It's called a Dough Easy mat. And you put your dough on it, you flip the top over, and you roll it. And then it comes with these strips that you can use. It comes with 4 of them. I don't sell Dough Easy. I'm not affiliated with the company. I just really like it. And you hook these together. There's 4 of them. So you can make a grid that is really awesome if you are making like Rice Krispie treats. But I use this to ensure that my cookie dough is all the same thickness. So let me see if I can put this down and I will show you all what I mean by that. I think y'all can see this. So I put my strips here. I'm going to take a little bit of cookie dough just so I can show you all. And I plop it down there. Now you really don't need flour on this, but if I've used a lot of butter, if it's a recipe that has a lot of butter on it, or I haven't chilled it overnight, for instance, and it's a little bit stickier, then I will put just a tiny bit of flour on this. But the nice thing about this is then you flip over the top. So that way you're not going to get anything on your cookie dough. Then I take my Big Mama rolling pin and I'm going to roll it out. And my rolling pin is right on top of these. So it's rolling the same thickness, which just makes life a heck of a lot easier. Next, I'm going to remove this, and I always flip this up to make sure that it didn't stick, and it didn't, so I'm going to put it back down there. Next, I use these Nordic Ware pans. I think I got this at maybe Sam's Club. I've had these probably for 10 years, so they're perfectly clean, but they don't look it because they're good and seasoned. But before I start making cookies, what I always do is I put my pans in soap and water, very hot water, and then I wash them, and then I actually put them in my oven that's on to dry. Next, I use culinary parchment paper. This is, I believe, I can't remember if I got this at Sam's Club. I might have actually gotten this at Michael's when it was on sale. But it's just multi-purpose nonstick paper. It makes a huge difference. I really, really like parchment paper. You also can use parchment paper more than once. I probably will bake I mean, maybe 6 or 7 batches of cookies on it until it gets brown, because it will, discolor a little bit after it's been in the oven. Then I get rid of it, but you can use it really for a long time. Next, once my cookie dough is good and rolled out and I make sure that it's not sticking, I'm going to take my cookie cutter, and this one has a little hole in it. It's a donut, so I'm going to make sure that it's not going to stick. Sometimes I'll have to that's good. So I'll, put the cookies, cut out the cookies with the cookie dough. Like I said, if you all have any questions, feel free to ask and I'll answer them when I'm done. But then I like to remove the excess cookie dough like this. Then I'm going to, the thing I like about this is you can lift it up and then I take the cookie off. And that way you are not distorting the shape of the cookie by having to peel the cookie up off whatever surface. So I'm just putting these on my baking sheet, popping my little donut hole out of there. Now, sometimes if I don't press too hard enough, I'll have these little ridges. I just push them in. Push hard enough with my cookie cutter, I mean. I'll just push them in. You can't even tell those are there though when you finish baking. Then I'm going to fill this up, and then the way that I do my baking is I will put this sheet with my cookies in my oven. This recipe takes 12 minutes to cook. That's based on my oven temperature. I always start on the middle rack. I'll cook half time on the middle rack, and then I'll move to the bottom rack and I'll put the next sheet pan in the middle rack. For me, that creates the most even bake. When your cookies are baked, this is what you want them to look like on the back. You want there to be brown, because what that is that's the caramelized sugar that happens whenever you bake. If you do not have that on the back of your cookies, you're not baking your cookies enough. Chances are they're a little bit raw in the middle, but the main thing is the flavor is not going to be as good. You need to have it. I think it's called the Maillard effect. You need to have that on the back of the cookies. So let me think of what else. It's very important that you do not let your cookies cool on your parchment paper. I always put mine on a cooling rack. And the reason that is if you allow your cookies to cool on your parchment paper, you will have a little bit of moisture that'll build up on the bottom of your cookies, because that heat is kind of trapped on the bottom of your cookie. And what happens then is if you take them off, if you think they're cool, you'll notice a little bit of, it's not wet, but you can tell a difference. It's almost a little tackiness. Maybe that's not the right word. But then if you try and stack your cookies together in order to put them like this, if you are stacking your cookies together and then you're going to put them in an airtight container to decorate the next day, if they're not completely dry, what will happen is they'll stick together. And then when you try and take them apart the next day to decorate, you'll have a problem. And that happens if you allow them to dry on the parchment sheet. So make sure that you always put them on a drying rack. I make cookie dough once a month. Like I said, I make a lot of it. And then I keep it in the freezer. Then I take out what I need every Monday if I have a cookie order or a class. Today I'm making cookies for a cookie class. And then I do that on Mondays. And then on Tuesday through Friday is when I decorate. I don't ever decorate and make cookies on the same day, ever, because I'm very messy. And I don't want cookie crumbs getting in my icing. I want to make sure that my kitchen is completely cleaned before I start making royal icing. So I never do that on the same day. And that helps me have a life too, because once I'm done baking my cookies, I'm done. I'm done for the week. So that's really nice. Let me think. Does anybody have a question about cookies? I have lots of great recipes on my website, Cheerful Cutters. They're the recipes that I used on the Christmas cookie challenge. I have a delicious one that's chocolate covered strawberry. Ooh, it's good. Reed Drummond loved that recipe, so that I feel like that's my claim to fame. I have another delicious gingerbread recipe that you actually make your own spice blend, which is so good. And I came up with that idea because we do lots of barbecue in Kentucky. And so we're used to making our own spice blend. So I thought, well, I'll do that for gingerbread. And then the other one is a lemon curd pecan, which is delicious. I made it wrong on the Christmas cookie challenge. I was so bummed. But if you follow the recipe, it is really, really good. But hey, I got to the second I passed on to the second part of the competition with that recipe. So it was still okay, but I put the wrong kind of lemon in it. But you're stressed out, when you're on the Food Network. Let's see what else. But the recipe that I use for my regular sugar cookie is Lila Loa 2.0. I've used it for years. Someone gave it to me. For me, it works absolutely perfectly. I love that it has brown sugar in it. Some people I've seen don't like the recipe because it doesn't work well for them. I think it depends a lot on what type of ingredients you use, how soft your butter is. There's a lot of chemistry it's all chemistry. Baking is all chemistry. The butter that I use, just to let you know, is Land O'Lakes. It does make a difference because of the percentage of fat that you have in that butter. So I use either Land O'Lakes or butter from Costco, and that works just as well as Land O'Lakes. But if I can find Land O'Lakes on sale, that's what I'm going to use. Let's see what else about ingredients. I use all-purpose flour. I always use pink Himalayan sea salt instead of regular salt because I think it just gives the cookie better flavor. I make my own meringue powder, so my icing is delicious. I have the recipe for that for sale as well on my website. My meringue powder and royal icing. It's a lot cheaper to make it than to buy it, and you don't have any crazy ingredients because you know what's going in it. Anybody have a question? What is a good percentage? You know what? Hold on, and I think I have another. I'm looking to see if I have another Land O'Lakes. I used on my Land O'Lakes butter, so I don't remember. But if you go to the store and you look at Land O'Lakes, it will tell you on the packaging. Because for the life of me, because you just asked me, I know it, but I can't remember the answer. But also when I'm making cookies, I sift my dry ingredients together. I think that makes a difference. You want your butter to be at 65 degrees, which you think, why do you know that? Because it makes a difference. And usually what that is for me is when I take my butter and I press my finger into it. It's usually been sitting on the counter for about an hour or less if it's really hot outside. When you can see an indentation, but you don't want your finger to just be able to smush the butter. You just want to be able to see an indentation. When I first started doing the temperature of butter, I actually used one of those guns that you can just point at it because I wanted to make sure. You think those things don't make a difference. They really do because baking is science. And I am not ashamed to say that I make delicious sugar cookies, but it's taken many, many years for me to perfect that. So try lots of recipes, find the one that works for you. Make sure that you use good ingredients. That's very, very important. Make sure that you use butter with the percent of butter fat that you have in Land O'Lakes, which right now I can't remember. I just have been buying that for so long, I've forgotten that. Eggs are always room temperature. You want to take them out of the refrigerator and sit them out so that they're room temperature. I use farm fresh eggs because I think they're more delicious. The yolk is richer. And so that's the kind of eggs that I use. They're a little bit more expensive, but I want to make sure that the people that buy my cookies are getting cookies that are delicious. Because what's the point of having a cookie if you don't want to eat it? So let's see. I've told you all about how I make the dough, how I keep it in. Oh, eggs are always a different size. Good point. In the recipes, what you can look at is it will usually have the grams. And whatever eggs you use, you can crack one open, you can weigh it, and then you can figure out based on your recipe how many grams you need. That's what I did when I started. Because you're right, large eggs for one company are extra large eggs for another. So you can definitely do that. I use a super cheap kitchen scale from Walmart. Bye. I love you. Let me give you a hug. Have a good day. See you later. I had to hug my son. He's going to work. So a kitchen scale is always key. It makes a huge difference. I weigh all of my ingredients. That is really a must. Flour, for instance, you all should do a test. If you scoop your flour, look at how much flour your recipe says. The recipe that I use says you need 490 to 560 grams. I think it also says the cups, but I don't remember what that is. If you scoop the flour and put it in a bowl and then weigh it, I guarantee it's way more flour than you need. If you scoop it and then level it off with a knife, it'll be closer. I mean, not scoop it, but scoop it into your. Okay, honey. If you scoop it with a spoon into your measuring cup and then you level it off with a knife, you're going to be the closest to the weight, but it's still not going to be right. So if you are making cookies, especially for a business, invest in a scale. It was about $20. Best thing I ever bought. I always use scales. I wish all recipes said weights. It's so different. It is. It makes the biggest difference in the world. Because you get too much flour in a cookie recipe, and what happens is when it comes out of the oven, it will look sort of flaky, almost like a croissant on top. And that means you have too much flour in your recipe. So you learn all these little tricks, after you've been baking for a long time. But I hope that this was helpful for you all. If you were on this morning, I appreciate you coming on this morning. But because I didn't save the video correctly, I just wanted to come back on here because someone said, "Are you going to save the video?" And I said, "Yes." And then of course it didn't save. Now, if you are a cookie decorator and you are trying to improve your skills because you just want to be better or you want to have a business, then I have two things. First, I do a podcast. It's called Sugar Coated Dreams, and I interview lots of people in the baking business, and they're very inspiring. It's so fun, too. I love talking to these people. And today I'm going to talk to Karen and Mike from Cookie Con. So that interview will air in a couple weeks. Second, I have a cookie decorating subscription box called the Cheerful Box. And I love that because I want to make it easy for people to become better, more proficient, and have more fun when they're decorating cookies. So the Cheerful Box comes with a step-by-step decorating tutorial that will teach you a new skill each month. It also comes with the cookie cutters, because how often have you bought a class and then you have to go and spend extra for the cookie cutters, or you don't know where to get the cookie cutters? Maybe that doesn't happen anymore, but when I first started decorating cookies, I would spend quite a bit for the class, and then I would have to go and find and buy the cookie cutters. And I always found that sort of annoying. So I don't want people to have to do that. So thank you for saying it's the best. So you can go to cheerfulcutters.com. It's the cutest one is out now. It's the fall theme, but the Christmas theme is shipping the 1st of November. And then in December, the theme is Valentine's, because I want you all to get more, I want you to get the cookie cutters way ahead of time. And the Valentine one, so fun. So many unique techniques in that one that I've never taught. So I'm super, that one's going to be a really, really fun one. So if you all have any questions, like I said, about cookie baking, dough making, please ask, because I want you to be successful. And if me showing up here helps you to do that, then that makes me happy. So have a cheerful day. Go to Cheerful Cutters, check out the Cheerful box, the recipes, the cookie cutters, all the stuff. That was a teaser, the Christmas and Valentine's. That's right. Oh, you're having hand surgery in January. Oh, that's my worst nightmare, that something will happen with my hand. I'm so sorry. It only says Facebook user, so I can't tell who Facebook user is. Who are you? So I can pray for you, because that's terrible to be out of commission when you're a cookie decorator. I have never had that happen. I mean, thank goodness. But I am having surgery in January, so I am also going to be out of commission for 4 weeks. I'm not going to be able to stand up, really, and that is going to be awful. But I'm going to figure out a way. I'll lay on the couch and I'll have people bring me stuff, and so I'm going to be busy in December. Michelle, I'm so sorry that you have to have hand surgery. That is absolutely terrible. So you all have a beautiful, wonderful day. It's a gorgeous day to be alive. And listen, most of us get to make cookies for a living. How much better does it get than that? Also, one last thing I want to tell you. If you want to know more about my story, how I got started, how I went from my degrees in clothing and textiles, how I went from that to being on the Christmas Cookie Challenge, having my own cookie cutter subscription, having my own cookie cutter shop. I mean, it's crazy. This all happened in 6 years, and it was a lot of luck and a lot of hard work. But I would love for you to go and listen to the podcast DIY Money, and I will put the link in the comments under that. It's my friend Quint Tatro, and he interviewed me a month or so ago, and people have said, why don't you do your own podcast on your podcast? But I don't think I could do as good a job as Quint did. So I'm just going to tell everybody to go listen to that. Have a great day. See ya. Bye.